How you guys doing today? I'm Nini FC, this is Blue Lions TV, and welcome to another 5 talking points video. After our humbling 2-0 defeat against Liverpool, in today's 5 talking points video, I'm going to be talking about how we can learn from Liverpool, why Sarri got it wrong with Eden Hazard, Jorginho, Rudiger and the defensive line, and to end things, I'm going to be talking about the positives in which Sarri was talking about. But before I get into anything, today's video is brought to you by the OneFootball app. If you guys want to help me out, in the link in the description below will be the link to the OneFootball app. I suggest that you download it because you are getting a fantastic football companion app. And honestly, throughout the course of a season, the benefit of this app is just amazing. If you guys want it, in the link in the description below will be a link to the OneFootball app. Starting with the first talking point, and how exactly can we learn from Liverpool? When Jurgen Klopp took over from Brendan Rodgers, Liverpool were 5th at the time. At the end of Klopp's first season at Liverpool, they were 8th, 3 places below the original position that Brendan Rodgers got Liverpool in. And during that time, there was a lot of outcry. Klopp out, fan screams. Gang pressing doesn't work in the Prem. The lineup selection, they all screamed. But after all these years, are Liverpool fans screaming now? No, because now, currently, Liverpool are one of the best teams in Europe. Now, they've peaked in their development under Jurgen Klopp. They're now close to winning the Premier League for the first time in years. He got them to a Champions League final last season in which Liverpool were very unfortunate in how they lost that game. And let's not forget, you guys, it was only in 2017 where Klopp was facing a lot of criticism from the press and from his own fans. In the space of 2 years, look at how far Liverpool have come. As you guys can obviously see, for the first talking point, I've found a lot of tweets from Liverpool fans. I found a lot of tweets from, people's thoughts and opinions on Klopp during that time. And as you guys can see, the arguments used against Klopp aren't too dissimilar from the arguments used against Sarri. And the reason why I did this was to show the parallels between both and why this isn't going to be an easy ride. That defeat to Liverpool showed us just how far Liverpool have come as a team under Klopp. But at the end of the day, we were playing against superior opponents. Do I feel like we're far off from reaching that level in the future? I don't think so. But right now, in this moment in time, we're not on Liverpool's level. But there's one thing that both Klopp and Sarri do have in common, and that's the fact that their methods and their system have been proven that it does improve over time. And that's because with greater tactical understanding of the system comes greater performances. Now you might be asking, what exactly have Liverpool done to become one of the powerhouses now in European football? And for me, it's quite an easy answer, even though it's very hard to pull off. And that's the fact that not only do they believe in the manager, but they tailored a squad around Klopp's image. And that's the most important thing. During the first parts of Klopp's phase at Liverpool, the system wasn't at its 100% potential. And for me, it's simply down to the fact that the players he had at his disposal just weren't well versed or suited to this style of football. And if anything, this past month has shown us that there is promise and potential with the football that Sarri is trying to bring here. And I feel like we need to respect the progress. And I think Liverpool are a good example of how you turn a club with potential into one of the big boys in European football. It takes time, it takes patience, it takes intelligence from people at the top, and most importantly, it involves everyone behind the scenes at the club working towards that philosophy they want. We can learn from Liverpool, and as it is in life, you have to go backwards to be able to go forwards. Now moving on to the second talking point, that's in regards to Eden Hazard and how I think Sarri got things wrong. Now for me, whenever I think about this game, I keep thinking about the what ifs. What if Hazard was starting out wide on the left? We saw what happened during that last half an hour of the game where Hazard was back in his best position. He looked more threatening attacking Liverpool then. I kept thinking about if Hazard had started on the left hand side, imagine all the rotational play between him, Ruben and Emerson. And it's no surprise why Emerson and Ruben were a bit isolated at times and why a lot of their build-up play was getting broken down, because Willian was very susceptible to constantly losing possession. And this is where Hazard is very important in that second phase of the game where, you're around the halfway line, opposition pressures coming towards you. Hazard's made a name for himself in that sense, beating the press, playing people in, and continuing the attack. But it does bring up an interesting question. Now, yeah, I do understand that there are some merits to using the system that Sarri used against Liverpool. But I just kept thinking that we're weakening our left-hand sides. And I keep thinking about the nature of Sarri's system. The left-hand side is really crucial in regards to how the team plays. And I feel like if Hazard isn't going to be playing on the left-hand side, you're only going to weaken how you play. And we definitely saw that weakness in abundance down the flanks. Not only was Hudson-Odoi more isolated out wide on the right, down that left-hand side as well. We weren't able to build up anything. And with Liverpool, they were constantly able to throw their fullbacks. They were constantly able to use their, midfield players to make those diagonal runs out wide. And we know how Liverpool play. I've been saying that they're one of the most aggressive teams when it comes to attacking the flanks. And, to use that false nine system in the sense. And of course, this is a bit of hindsight coming into my thoughts now. But, you're only strengthening their cause down the flanks. And it was no surprise that we effectively lost the game because we couldn't just sustain the enormous pressure that Liverpool was applying to us down the flanks. But if Eden Hazard was playing on the left, imagine how things could have been different. Can you really imagine Liverpool fullbacks pushing forward as much as they did? Would you see guys like Henderson being as adventurous with their movement? I mean, it's not really adventurous, but would they be making those runs as many times? I don't think so. But it's forever going to be a sad what if to think about. Now, moving on to the third talking point, that's in regards to Jorginho. And I feel like maybe sometime this month, I need to do a big breakdown of the player and how his overall season's been so far with us. But of course, in a game like this, it does highlight deficiencies in Jorginho's game. Now, just because you're a regista does not imply that you're supposed to be some defensive genius. Far from it. Registas aren't in the team for their defensive nous. But because we're not fully efficient in this system and this style, Jorginho is going to be obviously counted against by teams. He's going to be targeted. And, we do see the type of performances like we saw yesterday. Now, yesterday, he was doing this thing. Very good ball progressions from him, finding people between the lines. But when it comes to that physical battle, when you go 1v1 against him, when you're man marking, he isn't going to win that battle most of the time. Now, ideally, a part of me would love if Jorginho was given a training regime where he was told to bulk up a bit. I feel like if this guy had a few more kilograms of muscle on, I don't know if it would necessarily affect his game as much. And yeah, he's got decent close control, but it's not as if it's on an elite level where he's going to be skipping past 3-4 players like that. Some of his turns can be a bit slow at times, and for me, Cesc was better at doing that type of stuff, and even Kovacic is better in those areas. But I'm thinking maybe if Jorginho was more physically adept to this league, he might be a bit more confident defensively. I can imagine, Jorginho, does he want to be involved in 50-50s every single time? I'm not too sure. After a while, if you're losing most of your battles, there could be a possibility that your mentality isn't going to be 100% on point when it comes to winning that tackle. I think that Jorginho works. I don't think it's got anything to do with the regista role. As I said, in the future, I am going to be doing a breakdown on the player and the role. But I think there is a fair question to ask that should Jorginho adapt to the demands of the Premier League a bit? Now, for me, I do hate saying that. When people say things like, Serie A is much slower compared to England, no wonder you can't handle the intensity. I don't even think it's like that necessarily, but I think that he needs to be a bit more physical in the 50-50. A lot of times if he was, I don't think that we're going to be as weak in those central areas. Moving on to the fourth talking point, that's in regards to Rudiger and the defensive line. Now, other than a nervy 5-minute spell in that game against Liverpool, Rudiger was on point. He was combative, he was going in for 50-50s, he was firm, he was strong, and I feel like he's a fantastic addition for the squad because he has that old Chelsea spirit in him. You know, he's a winner. He doesn't like to lose. He's a bit old school in that sense. But from every negative, there is a positive. And this positive could be the introduction of Christensen and him playing a bit more. Now, I do feel for Christensen a bit. You guys have to understand. You have to acclimatise to the pace of the game. For people to just disrespect that point and not consider it shows you that you're not really thinking too much about the game. With the intensity that game was being played at, it was going to be hard for any player to just acclimatise into that tempo immediately. So I'm not going to be using that against Christensen too much, but I do feel like the guy does provide a good benefit for the team, and I think it comes from that positional sense. I feel like he does make us a bit more stable, and he does improve the defensive line. And for me, the defensive line this past month has been the most encouraging thing I have seen. That's because now we're not getting counted on the flanks as much anymore. We're not getting exposed as much. We're not having players isolated out wide. We're not having to see guys like Jorginho or our centre-backs have to leave their position as much to help support the full-backs out wide. I think we're seeing a better defensive line now because, you know, Emerson's playing now. He's got that recovery pace, and for me, you know, he is better defensively than Marcos Alonso. That doesn't mean that he's a world-class defender, but he's much more defensively solid than Marcos Alonso. And when he's falling back into position and that back four are keeping their line together, this gives us an amazing platform. And that platform I'm implying is the fact that we're now able to press much better and press in the opponent's half. The defensive line is just on point a lot more these days, you know. They move up together really well. They're moving further up as well. And of course, if you're a high pressing team, it's all about having a compact shape, you know. If you got all your guys closer together, it's going to make it easier to overload against opponents and obviously win back the ball quickly. And it also means that if a team does get a counter-attack against you, because the lines between, like, you know, the attacking line, midfield line, and the defensive line, because those gaps aren't as big, it means that, you know, obviously teams' counter-attacks aren't as potent. And this point falls in nicely with the final talking point for today, and that's in regards to the positives that Sarri's seen in the team. And I do agree with Sarri. I am seeing positives. I gave you an example in the previous point about our defensive line and why we're looking at a lot more solid defensively than we were during times this season. But I think the biggest positive which I saw against Liverpool was our commitment to sticking to the game plan. Now, there's been so many times throughout this season where when the chips are down, players revert back to their type, everything breaks down, we become a lot more disjointed, breaking teams down in the final third, we become a lot more exposed to down the flanks, we get countered much more easily, and it's been one of the hardest things for Sarri to keep this consistency throughout the team. And Sarri's actually right, you know, in his press conference he made the point that if this game was 2-3 months ago, we're losing this by more than 2 goals. I 1000% agree with that comment. We did battle valiantly, but most importantly, we stuck to the game plan. And I feel like this is a massive positive for us because the season's going to be ending soon. If we end the season well, it's going to really help our form for the start of next season. And it gets me thinking the only things we need to do to improve the team now is smart player acquisition for the squads. But again, a bit of a sign up. I'm a tiny bit nervous by that. When you see the reasons why Pulisic was signed, and obviously Bruce Buck came out recently to just admit there was a lot of financial and commercial positives from signing a Pulisic. It does make you worry if the board understands how to build a squad and how to develop a team. But that might be a video for another time in the future. That's going to be me for the day. Please like, comment and subscribe. I'm EFC. This is Blue Lines TV. See you guys tomorrow.